It was March 2020, and the world was at its feet with the coronavirus pandemic. COVID was gradually turning out to be much more than a rumor, with millions of people directly or indirectly affected all over the world. What started as a routine welfare check by law enforcement turned out to be something more. Join us as we take you through this story filled with a lot of suspense and eventually to a shocking end. It was at the start of the pandemic when family and friends of Gretchen started receiving weird texts. She claimed to be suffering from a severe coronavirus infection. However, she wouldn't return any calls and hadn't spoken to anyone in a while.
Friends and family of Gretchen Anthony started receiving disturbing texts.
Gretchen Anthony starts to send text messages stating that she has been diagnosed with the coronavirus.
Were the texts really from her? Or was there someone behind the scenes that was pulling the strings? It all began on March 23, 2020, at the very beginning of the world being in isolation from the coronavirus. Gretchen Anthony's family and close friends started receiving texts from her, stating that she had just tested positive for COVID, and she was at the Juniper Medical Center, where she could be isolated for at least 2 weeks. At this time, COVID cases were on the rise daily, so Gretchen's family grew increasingly worried about her. Gretchen lived with her 12-year-old daughter, Ava Ray, but at the time of her isolation in the hospital, her daughter was with her father, Jeff, who was also Gretchen's first husband. After Gretchen's divorce from Jeff, she fell in love with David Anthony, her personal trainer at a local gym. David was the typical charming young hot trainer, who every female in the gym had a crush on. He was quite popular and brought in new members regularly. David and Gretchen's relationship was wonderful, probably the type of relationship that Gretchen needed after her divorce. The pair got married in 2015 at an Elvis chapel in Las Vegas. According to those close to Gretchen, the pair seemed very happy together, and David was also an amazing stepdad to Ava Ray. Everyone claimed that their relationship was destined to be. One thing that Gretchen's family found very strange was that nobody close to her had received a phone call from her. Not even Ava Ray, who was known to be very attached to her mother. Even her ex-husband Jeff suspected something strange about the texts they were all getting. They were written in bad grammar and terrible punctuation, which was not something Gretchen would do, as she was very educated and did not ever text in short. There were a lot of abbreviations in the text, something that Gretchen was not known for. As strange as he found the texts, he noticed something familiar about them, but he couldn't really place what it was. Her family received further texts without hearing from her through phone calls, claiming that she was being transferred to an off-site medical facility in Belle Glade, Florida, run by the CDC that is handling only COVID cases. Little did they know at the time, there was no CDC facility on that side of Florida. So where was Gretchen? Was she actually the one sending those texts, or was something more sinister at play? Her family put out a call to 911, asking for a welfare check on Gretchen. Detective Jared Kennerson was put in charge of the case. First, he reached out to the Juniper Medical Center to confirm if Gretchen was ever there. Things got pretty serious when it was confirmed that Gretchen was never at the medical center around that time. The police canvassed the areas surrounding the hospital and found Gretchen's car in the medical center's parking lot. Even more surprising is that she left her purse inside the car, something that most women would never do on purpose. If Gretchen wasn't at the Juniper Medical Center, then where was she, and why would her car be there? Police decided to start a formal investigation and conducted a search in her neighborhood to find any clues as to her whereabouts. One of Gretchen's neighbors approached these law enforcement officers claiming to have heard a woman scream a few days ago. It sounded almost like she was being attacked.
A neighbor telling detectives she heard a blood-curdling scream from Gretchen's Jupiter townhouse March 21st. A woman yelling, "No, no, it hurts."
I heard a really serious woman scream, just screaming, like she was being attacked.
Investigations turned even more serious and bizarre when another neighbor told them that he noticed a strange soapy substance flowing from underneath Gretchen's garage door. They proceeded to search Gretchen's house and discovered that the key to the entrance door that leads into the garage was broken off in the deadbolt. The police forcefully gained entry into the house and Gretchen was nowhere to be found. However, they noticed a pungent smell in the garage, similar to that of a cleaning agent, but not bleach. As they conducted a thorough search of the house, they found some evidence suggesting a violent struggle had occurred inside the garage and house. They found a broken picture frame, a towel stained with a blood-like substance, and some shards of glass on her bed. Investigators then found out that some of Gretchen's neighbors had taken pictures of a black Nissan pickup truck parked near Gretchen's house the same day of the reported screams. Any guesses as to who owns a black Nissan pickup? Gretchen's estranged husband, David Anthony. This placed David at the scene and also upgraded him as a potential suspect in this case. Further investigations revealed that Gretchen had actually filed for divorce in February, and she and David no longer lived together. When interviewing some friends of Gretchen, they learned that Gretchen installed security cameras in the house right after David had moved out. Upon searching the house, they didn't easily see or find any cameras, but someone noticed visible signs that someone may have removed the cameras aggressively and intentionally, probably to hide evidence. The police sent a search warrant to her camera provider to retrieve the footage that had been automatically saved on the cloud. While awaiting their reply, the police decided to do some digging into David's life to better understand his connection with Gretchen and their recent split. They decided to pay him a visit at his mother's house, where he lived since separating from Gretchen. According to David's mother, she received texts from Gretchen claiming to be in a CDC center.
Next tonight, the husband facing murder charges accused of killing his wife. Police now investigating texts sent from her phone saying she had an extreme case of COVID-19.
When asked about her son's whereabouts, she told the police that he packed all his belongings and was on his way to Costa Rica. This made police more suspicious of him than they already were. They were right to be suspicious after they gained access to and watched the security footage of the Juniper Medical Center, where a man of around David's height was seen walking away from Gretchen's car after parking it and leaving it there. They had enough reason to go arrest David in relation to Gretchen's disappearance. The police then tracked Gretchen's phone, and to their surprise, it pinged off a cell tower in Pensacola, Florida. Gretchen's phone was on active and on the move. But was it Gretchen with her phone, or was the phone with someone else? Over the next few days, the police tracked the phone, which they believed to be David, across several jewelry stores in Florida. Available surveillance video evidence proved that David was trying to sell some jewelry, probably belonging to Gretchen. However, Gretchen was never seen in any of those videos. She was still missing. Although the police already knew David's intentions to leave the country, he was still a few steps ahead of them, leaving them to play catch-up and hopefully intercept his next move. The police continued tracking Gretchen's phone, but they were also tracking David's phone. They discovered that the two phones were continuously traveling together. Was Gretchen actually with David? They needed to find out. The police listed David's black Nissan pickup as a felony vehicle and issued a BOLO for it. Following investigations into David's past, the police discovered that he had once been arrested for assaulting a police officer while he was in college. And just 7 days before Gretchen's disappearance, the police had arrested David after he was caught following a couple of teenage girls at a shopping center. According to his boss at the gym, Tabitha Hopkins, he was very good at his job but was challenging to manage and sometimes showed signs of a dual personality. Some days she didn't know when David would show up to work. Tabitha also claimed that she texted Gretchen after she fired David just to check in on her and tell her to stay away from him. She felt that David was becoming unstable, like someone that was losing his mind, and she was worried for Gretchen's safety. On March 28, 2020, the police tracked David's phone to La Cruz, New Mexico. Detective Kennerson contacted La Cruz police immediately for assistance. La Cruz police found David driving and pulled him over. When asked about Gretchen, David told the police that he had also been receiving texts from her and that she told him she was getting treatment in a CDC facility. The police knew he was lying since they were tracking that David had the phone with him. The police took David's vehicle in for processing along with 3 different phones found with him. Shockingly, they didn't have enough evidence to actually arrest him at the time, so they had to let him go. On March 30th, 2020, the police finally received the video recordings from the cameras in Gretchen's house. In the video, they saw a tall figure waiting in the shadows on the patio to ambush her.
The images showed a man lurking on Gretchen's patio.
As Gretchen appears, the figure forces her into the garage and she can be seen calling for help. At one point, David Anthony can be seen looking directly into a camera and grabbing it with a gloved hand and removing the camera. The police finally had what they needed to make an arrest. Evidence that put David on the crime scene with Gretchen. With Detective Kennerson as the lead detective, police searched everywhere in Las Cruces for David, where he was last seen, but they couldn't find him anywhere and could not track him since they seized all 3 phones earlier. On the evening of March 31st, 2020, David was finally found and arrested while on a random walk with his dog. They took him in for questioning and interrogated him for several days to try and find out the location of Gretchen's body. At first, David repeatedly claimed that Gretchen was still alive. He said she was on the run after discovering some illegal activities at her workplace. He actually claimed that Gretchen had him send those text messages to some people on her behalf. After several attempts, including using Gretchen's daughter to appeal to him, the police could not get David to talk. While in custody, David was indicted on charges of kidnapping and first-degree murder by a grand jury. It is very hard to try a case without a body, and by December realized that they may never find Gretchen's body without David's help. They decided to work out a plea deal with David's lawyer on the condition that he confess to second-degree murder instead. David finally agreed and revealed the location of Gretchen's body. which happened to be just a few miles from her house.
This morning, a court hearing was conducted for David Anthony, and a plea was agreed upon in exchange for the information regarding the whereabouts of the remains of Gretchen Anthony. As part of the plea, David Anthony pled guilty to second-degree murder, kidnapping, and will be sentenced to 38 years in prison.
Justice was served, and David was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 38 years in prison.